Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of Datamine's Exploration Portfolio webinar series. My name is Norm Bellemare, and I'm the product manager of the Fusion Suite. So far in this series, John Shippick, VP of Exploration, walked us through the exploration portfolio at a high level, while last week Courtney Rady presented LandTrack. Today, we're going to dive into Fusion, Datamine's geological database management system. Now, what we'll go through today is just a little introduction, some challenges, a Fusion overview, what's new, what's coming, and the Q&A session. Now, during the Q&A session, if you have a question, you can certainly click on that little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen in your Zoom window and type your question away, and we'll do our best to answer every question at the end of the session. Now, exploration is one of the most complex and high-risk fragmented parts of the mining value chain. Typically, field tools are fragmented, and it's hard to track progress end to end. We're bringing software together so your data, your teams, and targets are always aligned. Datamine's exploration portfolio is not just siloed platforms. We're an exploration ecosystem tailored to unify these platforms. Excuse me, I got a cold too, right? So I might sniffle a little bit. So what's the problem, right? So like I mentioned earlier, fragmented data is difficult to gather, right? So data in different systems, we're trying to wrangle it all together. It's very, very difficult, and it makes it hard to analyze. The lack of real-time access to your data can also provide inaccurate results, right? Which is frustrating. And disconnected workflows can lead to delays and decision making. So a centralized database like Fusion can remove these pain points for us. So essentially, in a data management system like Fusion, what we're trying to do is help mitigate risks and prevent errors with tools that provide those procedures and safeguards for you, right? So the best part of Fusion is it's flexible and it adheres to your procedures, not the other way around, right? So we adhere to your workflow. You don't need to necessarily adhere to how Fusion works. Other than people, the most important part of an operation is the data, right? So your data is critical and you want to make sure it's safeguarded in the best tool possible, right? So Fusion will store that data for you, right? Which makes it accessible. You'll be able to seamlessly report on it, right? Whether it's internally or externally, right? Reduce time, which, reduces cost for the company. So how do we keep track of our data, right? So there, obviously there's platforms out there. There's different ways. For example, like Excel. We've all used Excel. I use it as well. But maintaining these logging templates and these pick list values and everything else could be time consuming. And tracking which version of that template could be difficult and inefficient, right? We also have access databases, which could be useful as well. However, trusting it with our most valuable data may or may not be the right choice, right? Having external expertise like consultants could be an option as well, but could be very costly, right? So purpose-built design software is a cost-effective way to manage your data, safeguard it. Again, without your data that is reliable, what do you have? So a quick overview of Fusion, as you see on screen here, right? So again, Fusion is a centralized database management platform, right? It streamlines the capture, the validation, and the use of your exploration and mining data, bringing it all into one trusted platform. So essentially, if we look on screen here, right, we've got our central database like in the diagram. So that's kind of how Fusion works. Whether you've got a small exploration company or just a tier one major mining company, all of the data that you would capture, right, ends up going into the central database, which essentially serves those two purposes. So the first one is storing all your data locally or centrally. And the second purpose of the central database is to do all of the configuration work that you may have to do, right? So whether you want to configure, workflows or create new users, data tables, you want to manage pick lists, you want to, do your QA/QC and add your standards and blanks and all that fun stuff, right? Everything is done in one central location. As you see on the diagram, right, all of the data can flow up from the sites. So site A and B, for example, or if you have 10 sites, that's perfectly fine as well. So all the data that you would capture would actually flow to that central database automatically. And the configuration that you would do on the central database would actually flow down to the other lower level databases like we see on screen. So you're doing your configuration once, you're making the platform, behave and do the things you want it to do. And you only do it once, which is really, really useful. And again, time management there, right? So again, all that stuff is automatically synchronized down and the data gets synchronized up. Now, what we see a bit on the right-hand side here of this diagram is we also have the ability to leverage our Fusion API, which allows us to connect external systems to the Fusion system, right? So whether you're using modeling applications or GIS, or a logging platform like QuickLogger on your smartphone or tablet, right? You can connect through the Fusion API and push and pull data across to those systems, which is really, really handy, right? And again, most importantly, the data is secure, right? Where you can decide who gets access to what sets of information. Now, an overview of Fusion. So Fusion itself is a suite, right? So the suite contains a few applications. Um, well, like we see on screen here, we've got DH Logger. And DH Logger is really built for data entry, bulk imports, right? So if you've got data from CSV files, things like that, you can absolutely import that data, right? Now, the one thing that's really, really important is it's not just for drill hole information. So you can, import or manually log your point sample data to anything in between that, right? So blast hole information, right? So anything and everything you have more or less in other systems like Excel, you can import it into Fusion in DH Logger. So Report Manager is another application, and it allows you to access your data in real time, right? So if we bring our data into the database, that's fantastic. But if we can't really get to it afterwards, it gets a little bit difficult, right? So with Report Manager, you're able to securely access your data at any time, right? So whether that's reporting, uh, charts, queries, it's always ready for you. Now, again, inside that Fusion suite, we also have the application called Fusion Administrator. And this application here is actually designed for you. It's not designed for IT, which is really, really important, right? So this is the application that is used to configure the system the way you want it to behave, right? So anywhere from data tables to pick lists to validation rules on your data, the workflows that you want to implement. Everything is secure and ensures your data integrity is done your way. And finally, we have our Fusion API, which is essentially a way of connecting, like I mentioned earlier, your third-party systems. So whether, again, it's GIS systems or modeling applications, you can use the Fusion API to connect those systems with Fusion itself. Now, some of the benefits, like I talked about them a little bit briefly earlier, but Fusion Administrator, again, is the one-stop shop, right, for anything you need to do for your configuration of your system, right? So whether, again, that's creating users or managing access, creating those custom tables that you want, like alteration data or mineralization or anything in between, right? Configuring your QA/QC, your labs, your assay rules, right? All done in that one application, managing your validation rules, and again, all of the changes that you are making are synchronized automatically to your users, right? So again, you do the configuration once, and that's it. You don't have to, write it down or figure out what you got to do on everybody's workstation. And again, most importantly, right? No IT skills, no database skills, right? It's an interface. You don't have to worry about how SQL Server works, and creating database triggers and things like that. It's automatically done for us. Now, DH Logger, right, again, is our application for importing, for manual data entry if you want to log data in a core shack, for instance, right? So this is the application that we would use to do that. Now I've got a quick little video here. I'll walk you through it as things go. Right, so once we jump into DH Logger, we have this nice modern interface with a little splash screen here where you get the latest news, the resources, right? So our YouTube channels, things like that. Our integration section, and again, our contacts, right? So if you need help with anything, you can reach out to our support through the interface. Right now, quickly here on the left-hand side, we've got all the menus available in DH Logger. Right? So anywhere from logging to importing, sample analysis, like sending lab submittals, all done in the application. You can print your sample tags here as well if you want to do that. We have a little administration section, a preferences for our users, and also other preferences here, like you're seeing on screen, like an audit log. Now, when we jump into the logging portion of things, right, you can see here. Now, let me just pause this for a quick second. The main important thing here again is the application is fully customizable. And what I mean by that is, although we're seeing some columns on screen and pick lists, etc., right? This is not necessarily the application as you would, configure it for yourself. So everything here is customizable. And that's really, really important, right? So depending on how you're logging, what you're logging, right? Columns are created, tailored to you, pick list values, etc., right? So you have full flexibility in what you're allowing users to log and see what they're seeing on screen. Right, so quickly here, we got our caller section. We've got all our projects. Again, very important here, based on the configuration that we provide with Fusion Admin. You can actually decide who gets to see what data, right? So these projects here, right? Which users can actually see projects from example site A, and who can see the project and the data from site B, all configured in the system. Right now, we jump into our details section here. And here is where we would log geological information. So for instance, we've got our coordinates, so our XYZ values for a hole. We've got our downhole survey information, right? In this window here. Then we can jump into, again, all these pick lists, fully customizable. So if we look at those active tables here, one quick second, once I jump into that, there's our pick lists again, right? So here's our pick list, right? Again, now that pick list here that I've got my mouse over is all these data tables that are configured in the system. And again, they're configured for each client individually, right? So again, the application, you have the tools in hand. You can create these data tables yourself. You can create all the fields, pick lists, the whole 9 yards. So once we jump to different data tables, you'll see different things. For instance, some of these headers that are in red, which are mandatory fields, again, set up the way you want them. What's mandatory for you? We've got all these different pick lists, right? We've got fields that are blue. Really important here, blue fields are calculated fields, so you can calculate values on the fly. Again, showing that same idea here, right? And so again, all this is fully customizable as we're going through the system. Again, our sample section, fully customizable, right? As you're logging, if you need to log different attributes for a sample, not necessarily just assays, as we're seeing in blue here, right? You can add all of those fields yourself. We can certainly help, of course. Right, logging your regular samples, your field duplicates. If you do that, you've got your standards, right? So standards and blanks, all added in the system here, configured again to meet the needs that you have for your system and your operation. Right, quickly here, we've got our printing tags. We've got a quick view here again of standards. Um, right, our look at our other menus, like our validation rules, right? So not only do we have validation rules in the system, but we also have little reports that allow you to see what's failed the validation versus what's passed, right? Any rules that you may have. We can enforce these rules or we can have them as soft rules, meaning that users can continue even if something's failed your validation, or a full stop, right? Correct the value before you continue. Now here we have our little core photo manager, right? So you can import images or tag them to your drill hole to specific intervals, right? Where you can visually look at things. You can actually draw on the core as well here, like you're seeing on screen. Save that, and off you go here, right? So again, very quick overview of DH Logger here, and here's a quick view of that data transfer, right? So I did mention in the beginning, data is logged and captured. With a click of a button, as you're seeing on screen here, data is transferred back and forth between your main database and the user's workstation. So there's our quick overview of DH Logger. Now, the one cool thing about DH Logger is it's like I mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily just for logging drill holes, right? So we do have dedicated modules that allow you to uh, well, more or less log anything else, right? So again, not just for drill holes. If you're doing chip samples, environmental data, you've got blast holes, you want just high level data of project information, really anything scattered anywhere in spreadsheets, you can pretty well bring it into Fusion here. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what that looks like in DH Logger. So in DH Logger here, we've got another dedicated module, like I said, and it's kind of split here. You can see we've got our parent table at the top, and we can have children table at the bottom. And more or less, let me pause that for a second. So what that means is you can more or less create a mini database inside of the Fusion database, right? So parent data like chip samples, for instance, up here where you've got your main information. And then if you wanted to log different data or attributes for the chip sample, for instance, you can certainly do that, right, with the child table at the bottom. Now, again, manual entries like I'm doing on screen in this video, right? Absolutely. If you want to import your data, no problem. We can certainly do that too. And if you want to integrate, you can import data with the Fusion API as well. Again, right from those third-party systems like GIS or modeling applications. Again, fully customizable pick lists. Same idea as what we did earlier in the DH Logger. And you can see here, we've got different modules, right? So these are modules that you would create depending on the data that you need to capture. So for instance here, now this is a very simplistic view, but environmental samples for example. Now in this case here, I've got mill production information, right? Now at the top again, the parent record. So in this case here, it's the date. And then at the bottom, I've got multiple child records that allows us to log or add different information for that. Right. And lastly, in this example here, I've got, like a small surface sample little package, right? So at the top, you've got, again, high level information for those samples. And at the bottom, you've got the actual, sample and data and assay results, right? Obviously, if you're sending your information to a lab. Right? So quick overview of that module there. Now, Report Manager is a pretty large application. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do your QA/QC charting, query your data, right? So you have access to your data at any time. Reporting, dashboards, and exports, right? So data goes in, it's great, but we have to get to our data afterwards easily. So let me just quickly play this video here. Now, in this case here, like I said, it's Report Manager, and you can see on the left-hand side, different modules, depending on what you want to do today kind of thing, right? So in this section here, if we look, we've got our QA/QC charting. Now there's multiple, I'll just pause that real quickly. There's multiple different, industry standard charts that you may want to produce, like standard control charts, the Thomson-Haworth charts, Z-score, multiple standards, lab turnaround time, right? All set up in the system and ready for you to configure it and build the way you want them. So in this case here, I'm just showing again quickly some charts that we have in the system. In this case here, this is a blank. Left hand, or sorry, the right hand side is some high level information on the standard. And at the bottom of the screen, you have access to the data that was produced or retrieved to produce that information. Fully customizable charts, right? So from axis colors and um, to series options, right? So data points falling inside or outside your ranges. Again, these ranges are not forced upon you, right? These are built the way you want them, right? So whether you're using min and max for your standards or blanks to standard deviation, these lines are drawn out according to how you set up your system. Now, when we jump into activities, what we're doing actually here is we're leveraging all our charts and we're able to view them all in one sitting, right? So you can group all these charts together and run them in one shot. Now, the nice thing about the activity and actually the report is you can filter the activity itself or the report. And what that'll do is it'll filter every chart within that activity or report. So now on screen here, like I said, we're seeing reports here, which export to either Word or PDF, right? So you can export those charts. You can choose to export the data or not with it. Now, when we jump into database, this quick video, I put the little high speed on it. Now, in this section here, what we have is you can actually look at PDF or formatted reports, right? So in this case here, it's our built-in Fusion log report. Now, again, customizable, right? So you want your logo on there. You don't like the way it looks. We can change it, not a problem, right? And our lab submittal, which also comes with Fusion, right? So as you're sending samples to the lab, we can do all that through Fusion and you can print your lab submittal sheet. When we jump into the widgets, now widgets is a way or a fancy term, I guess, for giving you the ability to create your own charts, right? So we have QA/QC charting, but right, certain charts are not for QA/QC. You want to maybe visualize other things. And lastly, in this section here, we've got a nice little visualizer. So you can see on screen here, I've plotted some drill holes. You can see them in 3D space, right? So adding legends and stuff like that. Now, in our dashboard section, right, what we're doing is we're allowing, right, of course, the creation of dashboards where you can see multiple objects or charts or queries in one view, right? So like a quad view in this case here. Now you can click that little refresh button at the bottom. So you can have this open all day if you wanted to, right? And just refresh as you go and view the charts. And lastly, in Report Manager, the ability to create your own exports, right? So there are built-in exports, but obviously, you know, they may or may not suit what you're looking for. So you can create your own exports with Report Manager. And the nice thing here is once you've created your export, you can actually choose which users have access to which exports, right? So again, all of this data is sitting in one database, which is fantastic, but you have full control over who sees what, right? And that's really important because we do centralize all your data, but it is secure, right? So you can segregate information based on sites. It could be by project. It's up to you. Now, the Fusion API itself, I don't have a fancy video for that one. But really what an API is, it's an application programmable interface, which is a secure way really of accessing a database from outside of the intended application. So when you're in Fusion, right, you're in Fusion, you're in DHLogger, you're interacting with the data, the database, and everything's secure. But when it comes to giving access to third-party applications, so for, again, instance modeling applications or anything else, we want to make sure that the data that's being accessed is accessed in a way that's secure as well, right? And that's what our API provides. So it gives us the ability not only to, you know, integrate all of your systems with the source, right, which is the database is the source of all your data. It reduces manual work, right? So importing and exporting, yeah, we can certainly do that. But how cool is it when you can just click a button and it goes fetch the data for you, right? So, right, automatically done for us. Bidirectional, which means that in the application, yes, you can pull data from Fusion into your other applications, but if you wanted to, you can also push information from your third-party application into Fusion as well. It's always ready, right? So an API is always on, which is nice, right? It doesn't turn off at certain times or when shift changes. And again, one of the nice things here is spreadsheets, right? They have their place, but how nice is it when everything is centralized in one location? Now, for those who are familiar with Fusion, I'm just going to jump into a what's new here, right? So, what's new in the Fusion 11 series, Service Pack 1? So, what we've done is obviously we've got our validation rules, right? But they're now extended to check-in. Now you have the possibility or the option to decide if validations fail, do you even allow the check-in of that drill hole, for instance, right? Same idea in our standalone module, which is that module I showed earlier in the video where you can have, not just drill holes, but anything else. And also integrated what we call our modular samples, which is a separate sample table that is integrated with the standalone module, right? So again, main thing here is, if your data is clean going into the source system, it's clean coming out, right? So the worst part is if it's not clean from the get-go, then it gets really difficult to clean afterwards. Now we do have a new email management module as well. So what we're doing is we're leveraging our validation rules and allowing you now to silently send emails. So alerts based on actions, customized actions in the system or even data conditions, right? What's nice about that is it reduces the manual follow-up and also ensures timely awareness of issues or milestones, right? So if you need to know about certain actions, certain things, right, you'll get an email when that action or that data condition does happen. Now in Report Manager, we've added a dynamic filtering section to our queries module, which is really handy. And the reason for that is sometimes when we run queries, it's for a large data set, but maybe you want to drill down a little bit, right? And get to a certain little section of it, right? So you'll be able to filter that information. Nice part here is it's not just filtered on screen. You can actually choose if you want to export the filtered or unfiltered data as well. And we've added a couple of new fields to all of our data tables, right? So it's nice to know who last modified a certain record, but it's also good to have who actually created the record initially. So we've added created by and created date time fields. Now we're getting a little technical here, but it does give us a bit more transparency into who created record and who's lastly updated it. And a little bit of eye candy here. So we've added a whole progress bar. Now, currently, this whole progress bar is calculated based on the depth you input in your caller screen versus the maximum depth logged in every other data table, right? So it'll calculate based on your lithology depth, where you're at, your alteration, right, et cetera, et cetera. Now, future enhancement will allow you to configure this section and decide what constitutes, right, this progress percentage. And for anyone who's on the call today, that is IT. What we've done is we've introduced a new security model. So for those who have seen or have used Fusion in the past, we did rely on ODBC connections. So as you see here, ODBC you later, no more ODBC connections in Fusion. Now, the nice thing here is it removes the need for mapped database users. So I won't get too technical, but it certainly enhances the security around the data, right? So very, very important. So now what we're doing is we're using what's called application level security. Again, everything's encrypted, right? Communication between workstations and your central database fully encrypted. And the Fusion API also supports SSL or HTTPS, which is more or less a secure channel, right, for transferring information. Now, what's coming, right? So it's great where we're at today. It's fantastic. Where are we going in the near future? So in the coming months, we're going to release Service Pack 2, right? So in that series, what we're going to see is a full integration with Datamine Discover. What that means is you'll be able to capture point samples, plan drill holes in Discover, and push that data into Fusion, right? So you'll be able to push and pull data back and forth between Discover and Fusion. We're also going to introduce a new file management system, so integrating Datamine's Trust, ensuring again just the files and images are properly managed within the system, right? So file versioning, security around those files, etc. More eye candy, right? So we're going to introduce a new reporting tool, which will allow you to create. So we did see one in Report Manager earlier in that video, but this one here will allow you to create your own charts, dashboards, and PDF reports, but in a just phenomenal way, right? So the nice part about this new module is the charting will be fully, like just charts that you can kind of imagine, I guess. You'll be able to create those any PDF type reports, right? We've got built-in ones for sure, but you'll be able to create your own. And then nice dashboards. Now, the goal here with this new reporting tool is not only will it live in a report manager, but the idea is to bring these dashboards that you would create inside the DH Logger splash screen, right? So you can open DH Logger, you've got a nice dashboard ready to go. Perhaps it's drilling information, or your logging information, where you're at, things like that, right? So a nice dashboard integrated into DH Logger. And of course, the Fusion API. So as we continue in the integration world, the Fusion API, of course, will get enhanced, will get better, more powerful, right? Allowing you to integrate with just about anything. Now, this one here is brand new. So we're currently working on an application called SmartLog. It's a web-based interactive graphic log. Right. So as you can see on screen here, I don't have a video. I just got screenshots, but it's going to be a nice configurable graphic log interface integrated directly with Fusion to view that data graphically. Now, not only is it going to be integrated with Fusion, but SmartLog is going to have its own API, which will allow the integration with other products, right? So perhaps it's Datamine, the Datamine Studio platforms, right, or other third-party applications, right, leveraging the the SmartLog API. You would actually be able to, view your downhole graphic log information. Now you can see on screen here as well, we're also going to add the ability to display those core images, right? So the graphic log is really nice, but having that core image right next to it does add quite a bit of value, right? And also incorporating AI to do clippings and creating downhole strings here. A bit long term in this application, but we will have the ability to log on this interface as well, right? So you'll be able to actually log with this new platform in the coming near future. And that's Fusion as a whole. So again, one thing to keep in mind is obviously Fusion is a fantastic platform. And the great thing here is no matter where you are around the world, there's an office, just about around the corner, right? So if we look at the map here, I think there's like 28 different offices in this. I counted them. I'm pretty sure it's 28 offices around the world here ready to support you, right? So, again, whether you're from Canada, Australia, or anywhere in between, right, you've got a network of experts that can help you.